On this episode of ResiWeek, Google has come out with their own version of Amazon's Echo, what that's going to do for the residential market. We look at the impact of the IMAX branded home theater system, plus talk about electricity in your coax cable. All that and more next on ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 17, recorded Monday, May 23rd, 2016. Okay, Google. ResiWeek is brought to you by our fine group of underwriters, companies like the AVNu Alliance. This is ResiWeek, the weekly look at the residential and home version of AV. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us, first and foremost, we'll do the farthest person away from me, and that is his name is Paul Williams. He is from Control 4. Welcome, sir.
Well, glad to be here. Thanks again, Tim.
And now this is going to be interesting because I've never done this, at least not with video. Sitting right next to me, guy's name is Joe Whitaker from J. Whitaker Designs. Also happens to be a CDA board member. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Glad to be here. Easy drive.
Well, easy drive. Easy drive. That's, when you live in St. Louis, everything's an easy drive. It's just,
That is true.
I've told people before that I live on the east side of St. Louis, so technically I live in Illinois. Mm-hmm. But where my house is, I can be in Busch Stadium in 20 minutes because of the highways and we don't have LA traffic.
No.
Or San Francisco traffic, Paul. San Jose traffic. So, yeah. All right, let's get.
Makes it easy.
Oh my gosh, you guys are horrible. Nothing's as bad as Atlanta, though. I've never experienced traffic worse than Atlanta. Just personal.
That's one of the reasons I avoid that place.
I don't blame you. All right, first and foremost, so Google had their home I/O. Google had their I/O conference last week. One of the biggest stories to come out of it. Holy cow! Here comes Google with their Amazon competitor. I'm not going to say it's a killer, not quite yet, because it's not even shipping. So Joe, we'll start with you on this. What do we think? Initial reactions, and just for the record, again, we don't have a price, we don't have a ship date, but just the fact that Google is going down this road.
So vaporware is good. Vaporware is good. I think there's going to be a big impact on it because other than Apple with Siri, they've had the longest run with voice control that actually works. Or just, the way they do voice with OK Google. Mm-hmm. I use it on my PC a lot instead of having to type in things.
I've never used it on my PC.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. All you have to do is you turn the mic on and you have it listening, and you can say, OK Google, search for blah, blah, blah. And boom, I don't have to type.
Really?
Love it. Okay. So they've already got a lot of experience going into these weird territories. The thing that really sparks interest is Google has been pretty open with, for the most part, with some APIs, mm-hmm. more so than anybody else. So that could be that transition into using it with with Paul, with Control 4, using it with other systems because, Alexa and Echo didn't make it that readily available. Google already recognizes a home automation platform. 6 years ago, they said, we're going to come out with Android at home. We're going to have our own home automation platform. They felt that was a bad idea.
It is a bad idea.
It was a horrible idea. I got to see a demo of it at South by Southwest. It was really bad. But now them taking the knowledge they have of voice control, voice recognition, and implementing that into Control, because, the article says, we already have plans on to control TVs that use Chromecast. Okay, great. So that means you already have it in your mind that this is going to be a control mechanism for things other than just streaming music, which they also mentioned that they don't know what services is going to be yet. So we know there's going to be, Google's own version. Who else are you going to have?
Well, you have Google Music, right?
Yeah, you have Google Music. But I think that they're a company that could actually do this and actually do it in a well-orchestrated mass market. Echo was the teaser. Let's build this thing and throw it out on Amazon Marketplace where everybody that uses it can see it and just watch it take off for itself. We'll figure out analytics on it all later. Let's just toss it out there. Well, now Google has a proof of concept out there that Echo did. And they're like, okay, we can do voice better. We can do devices better. We have better algorithms. We got more research, and our analytics is top notch in the world. If we throw all that into a product, there's kind of no way they can lose. I mean, they're kind of at that point. That's why I really think it's going to be compelling. And they recognize this market, and I can say they do because this year at CD, you're going to see Google on the trade show floor.
Okay, then.
And Amazon. So they both recognize our industry, which is great, finally. But yeah, they are going to be the new remote for the connected home.
All right, Paul. Joe mentions the whole interactive thing. I'll point out that there's a couple of manufacturers, control companies that have started dabbling in this. Right, I'm not even going to say they've figured it out yet because they haven't. The only one, there's maybe 2 or 3 that have started down this road. The APIs from Google in general, obviously, we don't know specifics about this specific product, but in the past, historically, Google's APIs have been rather robust. Does that encourage you? Does it discourage you? Does this frighten the bejesus out of you? What is your take as a control company in general?
Oh, we're very excited about it. We've Echo is one of those platforms that has been out for a while. We have some third parties that have created interfaces or the capability to connect Echo to a Control 4 system and allow it to work correctly. We look at the Google news as interesting and exciting. I agree with Joe. They have the bandwidth behind them and also the know-how, and they've got 15 plus years of searching technology that they have built into this thing, right? That's not been Amazon's forte. Amazon's a retailer, right? They've really grown up as a retailer, and as you look at that Echo box, it does a great job of retailing what Amazon does. And then secondly, it was a control device that that's being utilized in that home automation world and the rest of the world. I think the Google approach coming to this is going to be exciting and interesting. Interesting to me, though, was at Google I/O, it seemed like they jumped the gun a little bit. I know it's their event, and so it was probably the best time for them to announce something like this, but it seems not ready yet. They're announcing they don't have the SDKs or the APIs available for third-party developers yet, right? It doesn't have all the features that they were hoping to have, and that so it seems like they don't have a price. They jumped the gun quite a bit on it. But I understand you're coming to your big event and you want to announce it, but it seems like their development's probably a little bit behind where they were anticipating it was going to be, because knowing Google, I think they would want something a little more wrapped up that they were talking about last week. But I'm excited about it. I think there's some cool things there. The real question is, does the advantage that Echo has, because Echo's selling a ton of units right now, or Amazon is with Echo. The question is that first comer advantage, does that continue to yield them advantage, or does Google just overpower them and beat them out of the market? That'll be the interesting thing to watch.
Well, and I guess I'm going to ask the question here.
$1 million.
Who's the bigger company? Seriously. I mean, and that's an honest question, because you look at Amazon, and I am not a stock market analyst by any stretch of the imagination, but I would say that probably Google is a slightly bigger, but the valuation for Amazon is in the billions, right? Yeah. So who is the bigger company?
It's the battle of the Goliaths here. I mean, you got both these guys they got a lot of money they can throw at it too, and
not for nothing. Let's mention the other one. Where the heck is Apple in all this?
I think they're sitting back waiting.
Okay,
they're like, okay, wait. Hold on. We'll watch these two fight, and then we're going to let's let that come out, and then we'll see which one wins and why they won, and we'll mimic that, which would probably be a smart thing because they've had some failures like HomeKit and some other things that they dabbled in. But I did it's interesting that Paul's on this because it made me think of something. So I look some years back, right? And I remember me and Paul and Eric Smith at some trade show. I don't remember. This was at least 8, 9, 10 years ago. And there was a company called Voca, which was basically it was the first proposed voice control platform to be used with Control 4. Some guys out of Canada had a nice little touchscreen that utilized voice control. And then some years later, we saw VoicePod.
Yep.
With Ted, who's a good friend of mine. So we've seen these companies try to do it from a residential automation circle of, doing it interior.
In our own little sphere here.
In our own little sphere. And while the idea was good and the tech was okay, there's not that potential for mass, which pushes products out.
Mm-hmm.
So with these guys doing it, and I'm sure Paul can agree, this is what actually brings it full circuit, brings it back into, the home automation systems, is it takes a big Goliath to actually make the masses recognize this. You can't do it from internally where you only have a dealer base of X that's going to push this out by word of mouth. Now we've got the big guys duking it out to try to pull this in. That's what's making it, a big deal. It's basically Sonos, but for voice control. Multi-room audio, we've in our industry been pushing it for decades and decades since the thing started. Yeah. But Sonos made the recognition for multi-room audio with that Super Bowl commercial. Yeah. The commercial was Super Bowl, one of the most brilliant commercials I've ever seen that didn't say a single word. It's crazy. But that's what Echo has done for us for voice control. I think Google can do a better job at it, even though Amazon is the marketplace and they crush Google for Google's, shopping. But Google has a much, much bigger reach because you can guarantee when they release this, there's going to be a Google search box that when you press it for like the first week of launch, you're talking to their device and you can buy it right there. The way they're going to do it, I'm assuming, is going to be huge.
Yeah, I think we are doing the battle of the Goliaths here.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's just like Betamax.
Oh, jeez. All right. Okay, so here's an interesting story, and I bring this up, and if you're watching the video, you can be as scared as I am. If you're not, I'll explain what's going on. It's come to us from a website called The Verge, theverge.com. Good technology podcast and blog and site. Title of the piece is "A Bad Cable Installation Destroyed My $2,000 TV and Almost Killed Me." I'm sorry, maybe almost killed me. There's a little video loop of somebody taking a cable unhooked from a device and basically touching it to a metal object, and there's sparks coming out. So it's a very much an electrified cable. Long story, very, very short. I'm not even going to mention the 2 or 3 different cable companies and satellite companies that were involved in this. But this gentleman, Chris Welch, works for The Verge, had a Vizio 65-inch 4K TV.
An HDR one.
Yeah, wasn't even his, right? Poor kid was reviewing it for his job, right? And plugged it into this and toasted his old plasma, toasted this $2,000 Vizio, toasted a couple of different satellite cable box receivers. Joe, you said that you've seen this a few times.
Yes.
I guess the first question is, how does this happen, and who's responsible?
Oh, that last part's an interesting part.
I'm not asking for legal mumbo
Yes,
jumbo,
no. So, okay. So, I've had this happen. Me personally, both in St. Louis and in Texas, and there's a couple of different ways it can happen. He mentioned a staple piercing a coax that can cause some issues. A lot of these actually have to do with ground loops and things like that, where the cable box is actually the cause of the problem, because it can take bad things like that and send it out through the HDMI, can send it out through the coax, can send it out through RCAs. It all comes down to that voltage. And one of the things that it should be like a best practice is, doing some type of, surge suppression and elimination on, I always preach it, coaxes and HDMIs if you can do it.
Yeah.
Metro's got a great product for that. Put it right on the HDMI and gets all the stuff out.
How does it do that?
That's a good question. You'd have to ask the HDMI brain over there at Metro who came up with it. It's an amazing little box, though, by the way. You can't get surge through it. But I've seen it a handful of times. I told you about there was a time when a certain DirecTV company wouldn't let us actually put the boxes.
Did you just say a
in the
certain
rest.
DirecTV company?
Yeah, one of the the installers, the subcontractors.
I thought you were being
No.
cute, but
No, I was talking about a subcontractor.
Okay, thank you.
Wouldn't let us put the boxes in the rack. They had to do it, and then of course we're going to want to go in there, clean it up, re-terminate them, shorten it, make it look the way we want it. And took one of them off and had my arm on our grounded rack, and touched the tip, and was worse than any 110 shock. It was nice, and it really got me. And another time something similar happened. So I've seen this happen. Another time was through an HDMI that was being plugged into a TV. Before it even got all the way in, you saw the spark arc across, fried the HDMI, fried the TV. In that instance, at least, it was a customer already had the TV. It only blew out one of the HDMI ports. So the TV didn't totally die. But, yes, I've seen it. And most of the causes are our industry. Veterans understand the way a ground loop works.
Yes.
Right? So, you have your panel, your neutrals and your grounds are on different buses. And when they're on different circuits, that can cause those kind of things. Yeah. So when you're centralizing your rack, which is a good case of probably what happened to him, is he had more things to plug in than he had local outlets. So he probably had it on two different circuits, or their power inserter, or whatever the cable company used, and that caused that type of thing to happen. And how do I put this? I don't want to say cheap devices, but ISP and cable provider devices are not the most stout built. They're just throw them out there, get them built, and put them out there. They're not built to handle that kind of thing. So they'll put that stuff out of the HDMIs and out of the coaxes and create all types of other issues. I've seen cable modems blow up. I've seen routers get fried in a commercial setting. So, the fault, though, the problem with the fault is, how do you actually say this was your fault? Cable companies are required.
Easy. You say this is your fault,
right? Yeah, but what's the proof? Where's the proof? Cable companies are not required by any kind of law to do voltage testing on their coaxes, which is horrible. They just just terminate the coax, plug it in. Oh, we got video. We're done. No, there should be something that says, do me a favor, check and make sure there's not 12 volts at 1,000 amps rolling through this coax cable.
Yeah.
They're not required to do that. The flip side of that is it may have voltage on it, but it may not be their fault. This might fall back to the the electrical in the building. So it's a downward. You never know.
All right, Paul, I'm not quite sure what to ask you from a manufacturer standpoint, except for the fact that this is freaky. Is there? You guys have got protections and stuff like that on your electronics. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot you can do, is there?
No, I guess that one of the things that it would add a lot of time to your install, but as a installer, you could try to test that out, see if it's got voltage running on the line, right? Before you plug it into your equipment, especially on that coax. That was the scary part to me. You got this piece of coax. You expect that you can put that thing on your tongue and you could dip it in water and nothing's going to happen.
Oh, good. Nice.
Because it's coax. We don't worry about coax.
Exactly.
Right?
I hope this article keeps everybody from putting coax on their tongue. I'm just saying.
This thing was like an
I've
arc
totally
welder.
done that.
I have too.
But it was like an arc welder, right? That's the last thing you want to see happen.
Right.
Yes.
That thing. So the only thing I could suggest is that you may have to do that. To Joe's point, the interesting thing in that article to me was he called the company. They come out and fix it. They still charged him
For
$60.
service.
Exactly.
They charge it for a
Fix the
service call.
problem. To get rid of the arc welding cost $60.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
was awesome. To make it safe, it cost another additional amount. So the only thing I would suggest is that if you're worried about it, it's probably it's a 10-second check with a meter to see if you've got power running over it, and that's probably a good kind of best practice, I would say. So
Yeah, absolutely.
especially when you haven't had the total end-to-end. Installers that are going in and installing the whole thing end-to-end, they're putting the boxes in, they're running the coax, they're doing everything. You're a little safer there because you've got control of that situation.
Right.
When you go in, though, and you're pulling old boxes out and putting new boxes in, you probably want to be careful.
Yeah.
You don't know what that environment looks like and how it's working. So.
Well, and it goes back to your point is making sure that you get a voltage touch. Even a cheap multimeter, but a multimeter, right?
Yeah.
Just get a multimeter on and turn it on and see what's coming through there.
If there's any manufacturers actually watching this that makes any kind of, I don't know, line toners or HDMI testing equipment, I would suggest right now that you could just possibly put a voltage test inside those testers, other than just a little continuity flip switch. Oh, it's got continuity. It's plugged into something. No. If they did that, that'd be amazing. So if you're watching,
that's a great idea.
put some voltage in it. Put some voltage testing.
Wonder if we have. Yeah. Anyhow, all right.
It all happened at AVNation.
I was trying to think of one that I know watches, but I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Me neither.
All right. Last story here, guys. IMAX. And this is interesting. I grabbed this actually because we had Ron Callis on a couple years ago around the same time that they had the first iteration of this. IMAX TCL is launching the IMAX Private Theater Palais, and I hope I'm saying that word correctly. PALAIS. Nobody here is correcting me, so I'm going to move on. It is the company's first quote-unquote completely turnkey home theater system from a single source. Okay. First question, and Paul, we're going to start with you because Joe's had a couple of instances with IMAX. As a manufacturer and as somebody who could possibly get in, I guess the best way to say this is get in on this business, right? How do you start conversations with people like IMAX, right, who have started going down this this higher end residential road, and obviously it's to increase their brand and revenue stream. But how do you guys start the conversation? Do you just call up the folks in IMAX up in Canada and say, hey, we have a really cool control system. Would you be interested in partnering so you can get in on this single sourced home theater stuff?
Yeah, we do a lot of that cold calling. We have a biz dev group here, and we identify key partners that we'd like to work with, and we have them reach out. Some of it's cold call. They use LinkedIn a lot. They'll find out who the key players are, and they'll do some exchange, try to see if there's an interest, and that interestingly enough drums things up. We also then have manufacturers come to us because they've heard about the Control4 platform, and they say, hey, we'd love to have our system work on your platform. In this specific case, it's interesting. I think it's another interesting take on kind of that bundled, everything included. It's soup to nuts. You pay one fee, and I know what that is. And I think there's some value there to some consumers. It's as Joe will attest, the challenge when you go into a consumer that has no concept of what his services cost, it can be a little perplexing sometimes. So he's gonna try to understand what their needs are and what their wants are, and he's gonna give them a price, but that price could be between $10,000 and $200,000. And what you get in between is really hard for consumers to have to grok and to understand. Where this is what you're getting. You're getting this experience. You got this product. Here's what it is. Here's the theater. It costs this. Here's what it is. And I think there's some value to that. The question is, will they be successful entrenching that into that market? So.
All right, Mr. Whitaker. I'll ask you if they're going to be successful later, but walk down the path of doing these all-in-one complete turnkey systems.
So I'm going to coin a brand new phrase. It's going to be HTIBB, home theater in a big box. All inclusive. So IMAX did an iteration of this in the past, and I can't remember off the top of my head if it was $500,000 minimum or $1 million. I can't remember what the first iteration of this was. How much it cost? It was $1 million, right?
$1 million.
Okay. Yeah, and they did have a step down that you could do, but yeah, the starting price was $1 million. That's what it was.
Super affordable.
Yeah, super affordable.
But that iteration was like they do golf simulators now. That iteration was you're basically just selling it, and then you get a very, very small percentage for sales commission. That was that iteration of it.
Now, did you, real quickly, on that iteration, did you do any of the work, or you just sold?
No, you just sold.
They installed it. Okay.
The whole thing.
Okay.
But technology has progressed a lot, so now there can be a little more. Setting one of those up in the past, I got to see it, and yeah, I would rather not have even messed with it, because they really had the big box thing that you would use. It was crazy. But so now, my thing is when I look at it. You look at what they've done as IMAX, right? And they have this great idea, which kind of matches the new the Top Golf, the golf simulator, the baseball simulator kind of method. But when you look at it, and you're an integrator, you're a dealer, or whatever you may want to, even if you're just a home theater shop, you look at it, and any company that's been around for over 10 years is going to look at that and say, I have personally done more installs than you have in your existence. Because you look at their numbers, 160 something theaters, 68 international, and you're like, darn, I did that much last year. So it's kind of, you're kind of trying to, weigh through it. And, I know that IMAX has had conversations with Cedia on this whole new iteration. But I don't know if they can do it. They've tried it before. Ron Callis, me and him had lots of talks back then when that was going on, because the idea was great. But here's the kicker. Consumer experience. Everybody has heard the word IMAX.
Absolutely.
But there's only a handful of them in the United States. They're here, they're there. But now you have the people who have already put their foot down in the residential space. What I mean by that is Dolby Vision and R3D and also Dolby Atmos, which is the experience that home theater owners are starting to see. Because right now you can go see that. You can go see Dolby Vision with Christie projectors right now in theaters, in more theaters than currently exist for IMAX.
Really?
So now you have this shift, because what we're already being pushed in the residential market is already out there in a much larger scale way. IMAX just has that name. But when you think of IMAX, what do you think?
Big,
the
ginormous,
huge
yes.
screen.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're going to scale that down to a smaller screen, there's other things I can use that might have a better experience in a residential setting. That's where the kicker is going to be, because IMAX is known for a big screen. That screen is, probably the face of some of these houses. So, I mean, I don't know how they're going to proposition that. What is going to be better than that? Is it going to be better HDR? Is there going to be a better color gamut? Or what is going to be your claim to say it's better than an HDR Christie using Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos R3D?
Yeah.
What are you selling me that is better than that, where our industry and our channel is doing the entire install and sale and design, and this HTIBB?
And to your point, a lot of these residential dealers, all these dealers, period, have way more experience doing the installs.
Exactly. In
Right.
residential space.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Interesting.